y'all, and welcome to Clove Room. Today's video is super exciting in my opinion because I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on Taylor Swift's Eras tour. And not just my thoughts, I'm going to be recreating the look I did for the show, and I'll also be, showing you my outfit, which kind of has a stain on it, so let me give you a little bare shoulder. Just kidding, just don't focus how the strap has a stain on it. I got to go to night 2 in Atlanta, which was April 29th, so if you're a Swiftie, you probably just know from knowing what surprise song we got, but you should know based on April 29th what surprise, one of the surprise songs we got, which is pretty incredible, I'm not gonna lie. It's very lavender hazy on the eyes, but I wanted to do a lot of really kind of bright and pinky blush draping on my cheeks, a lot of warmth, but also with like the lavender in the eye. I really loved how it came out. It was super fun to wear. It was obviously super fun to attend. The Midnight's inspired, but I also feel like also very lover coated with like the pink and purple, maybe even a little speak now, if you will. So if you do have an Eras tour date ahead of you, maybe this could be like some makeup inspo. I'm also going to show you the dress I wore. Oh, and I need to and also show you the wigs I didn't wear at the end just because of logistics, but I definitely was planning to wear a wig, but then at the last minute was like, this is going to be a journey and hours and hours. I don't want to have to like throw away a wig outside of Mercedes-Benz because I'm so sick of wearing it. I'm also going to be, like I mentioned, talking about what I thought of the show. I mean, spoiler alert, it was a feat of entertainment and the possibilities of live performance. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm actually going to be ranking the different eras sections of the show, because if you know anything about the show, you know that the eras are very much clearly divided up into different parts. There's not a lot of or any really crossover between the eras. They're each their own little parts of the show, except for debut. None for debut, unfortunately. And I'm not going to be ranking the actual albums or eras. I'm just ranking how they were represented and performed on the Eras tour. I beg of you not to get mad at me. Please don't get mad at me. This is all just fun. And if you happen to be new here, welcome. My name is Cam, and I'm a non-binary transfem creator that loves to talk about trends, the beauty community, and also analyze pop culture. So if any of that sounds good to you, I would love to have you as a subscriber. So with all of that being said, let's get into the eras of it all. Welcome back to Fresh-Faced Cam. Let's go ahead and get started. So I actually haven't done my brows yet. All I did for my brows was I just used the NYX brow glue, and I put like a tiny bit of milk fiber brow gel into the tails of my brows. And disclaimer, please don't come for me with my rankings or thoughts on the show. I thought the show was absolutely incredible. I mean, to do a 3-hour plus show at all is crazy, but to do it with all the theatrics, with just like also like switching up constantly, being in full pop star mode and then being in full singer-songwriter, the only one producing sound on stage mode. It's like pretty crazy. So this is just because I think it's fun to talk about these things, fun to get my opinions. It's not, I guess it is criticism, but it's criticism in like the most generous, kind way, and it's just because I love Taylor Swift so much and not out of hatred at all. So please don't be mean in the comments. Like, you can totally disagree with me. I am all for disagreements, but if you liked an era more or less than I did, but there's no reason to get like nasty about any of this, because I swear I'm coming from a fan's place. So I did do a little bit of complexion before I started on the eye look, so we can do that as well. For primer, I just used the Milk Hydrogrip. I've been back into this recently, especially to, keep on makeup throughout the day. I just started like a job where I'm on my feet a lot, so I think this has been helping. Some days it makes whatever I'm using go on absolutely wonderfully and smooth and like a dream. Other days I feel like causes problems. Like, I feel like it's very finicky, and I basically use the same thing every day, so this is kind of the factor. I guess maybe how much skincare I do before or how long I let the skincare sit matters. Actually, on the day of the show, my base took a lot of finessing, and I think it was this primer's fault, but still using it. And I do like it. again, some days it makes everything go on super smooth. And then I'm going to use my Glossier skin tint. I have the shades G9 and G11. Picked both of these up during the Sephora sale because I missed the product so much, and I'm sort of in between shades in the summer. So I just went ahead and picked up both of them. Never been happier. I need to honestly do a declutter soon because, I don't know, working service and like having to commute again and being at a place certain times, so a lot of times I am rushing to do my makeup in the morning, has made me realize how much makeup I own that I just need to get rid of, because it's never going to happen for it. And if I can't confidently reach for something and know what I'm getting, A, and B, that I like what I'm getting, then what's the point? All right, so I guess I'll start talking about the show. So we went to night number 2 in Atlanta, which was April 29th. I like to just paint this Glossier skin tint all over my face, like so. And it was at Mercedes-Benz, which is downtown, and there was a big hullabaloo, which I think there is in every city, about truly just like how Taylor Swift's going to affect traffic. And if you know anything about Atlanta, the thing you probably know, and the thing that when I tell people who aren't from or have lived in Atlanta that I'm from Atlanta, they're like, oh, the traffic. And yeah, that, like, there was definitely a lot of concerns and a lot of, like, and they were reasonable concerns about what the traffic was going to be like downtown, around Stadium, just throughout the day in Atlanta. Because again, traffic on any day really in Atlanta is like, you can kind of assume it's going to be bad. So we took MARTA, which is the train here, which is like the places where MARTA runs, it's really nice and convenient. And I mean, I guess I wouldn't say really nice, but it works really well for like a train system. It, you know, if you need to get from point A to point B and MARTA happens to run along that, or can happen to take you from point A to point B, then, you know, it'll probably work out well for you. But it's just like doesn't unfortunately go that many places, which is really annoying. And it would be a lot better if we actually had like a real subway system in Atlanta. Like it would truly be like one of those memes of what would happen if blank happened, and it's like a utopia. That is what Atlanta would be like if MARTA actually got its shit together and ran more than like, it's literally like one line through the city. It's kind of nuts. So yeah, we took MARTA. We actually drove to a friend's house and just parked there because they live by a MARTA station. And so we were able to walk to MARTA before and after the show. Worked out really well for us because we got out just like, we left like maybe 2 minutes before the show was totally over, like while she was still in her final number. But like the dancers and her haven't done like their bows or anything. That's when we kind of ran out, and a lot of people had already started to like basically run toward the train because everyone knew it was going to be, based on night 1 and also just based on common sense, it was going to be insane after the show. And we were actually able to get on like the second train, I think, that left. And this isn't really that helpful if you're going to Taylor Swift now, because obviously all the shows in Atlanta are done. But my partner and I, my partner especially, he lived in Chicago for a long time, we like know how to use public transit, and a lot of people clearly didn't. So we weren't that shocked that we had to wait a little bit or that the trains were crazy crowded. Like, that's just how public transit works when there's big events. Just like on the roads, when there's big events, there's a lot of traffic, and it's more traffic than usual. Yeah, I just think a lot of Taylor Swift goers were not used to actually using public transit. So now to get into my ranking of the eras. I'm going to start with number 9 and work my way up to number 1 of the rankings, because I feel like that would be the most fun thing to do. So that's a Glossier skin tint all on, like super, super sheer coverage. Just makes my skin look better IRL, which is kind of always what I'm going for. And the dress I actually wore and I'll put on for you, it doesn't go down this low, so I'm not going to like totally try to make it match. I did, on the night of the concert, I did put some Drunk Elephant to Bronzy drops on my chest, and those worked really well to make sure everything was matching, because like my arms are a lot tanner than my like chest. I have like a pretty bad like farmer's tan from like running and soccer. And again, I say this with so much love. I love Taylor Swift. It was a great show, super impressive, wonderful. The worst era by far There's like the two worst are definitely like the two worst for me, but this was without question the worst. And again, this is quite shocking coming from me because this is one of my favorite Taylor Swift albums. I love this album. It might even, like, if you ask me my favorite Taylor Swift album, it might still be this album. Like, probably my favorite. Also, I'm going to use this as a mirror, and, like, I love this palette. It's the Escape Pod from Kaleidos, but, like, I don't know if it's just me, but, like, the squeaking is so terrible, but I need, like, a mirror, so I don't really know what to do. But I don't want it to squeak during the video, because that's very annoying. I guess I'll just use this makeup for everything. I'm also applying some Ulta eye primer if you care. But definitely the last place era for me of the performance was Red. Which is so disappointing because, again, Red is one of my favorite albums. It's really her first album where she bridged pop and country. And, I mean, she had been, like, country pop for a while, but, like, Red had, like, actual pop songs on it, which I very much know after going to the show, and was definitely like, you know, she did, like, I mean, I'm sure people who want to go from Nashville to Hollywood, like, study Taylor Swift in school, because she did the country star to pop star thing so impressively well, and pretty seamlessly. It was definitely like a slow, you know, parabola? I don't know. It was a slow something. She, like, if there's one thing Taylor Swift knows how to do, it's strategize. So again, I had a very lavender hazy sort of blush draped look. I started with the eyes, and I can just tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'll talk during it. I used Soiree, like, all over and in the crease and, like, buffed out, I guess, as a transition, if you will. And then I also used Flamingo on the outer corner and just blended that into Soiree. Used Space Oasis, this lavender-y glittery shade all over the lid. And then some Starlight Sonata. Kind of like on my inner lid. Not necessarily as an inner corner highlight, but as an inner lid sort of highlight. And then I think I also used both Bossa Nova and Terrace, these two browns at the bottom. I think I mixed between them to use that to kind of deepen up the outer corner and the lower lash line. And then for my inner corner highlight, I went in with my favorite highlighting shade from the Pat McGrath Mothership. How do I always forget the name of this? It doesn't even say on here. Mothership 7. It's the one that the Star Wars controversy happened around. Midnight Sun. I went in with this, which is like my favorite face highlighter of all time. Actually, I just hit pan in it, which I feel like is really impressive for a Pat McGrath shade, but that's also because I use it as like a face highlight all the time. And then I use the sparkly special sort of white beigey shade on my brow bone. So that's what I'll be doing as I tell you about how I did not enjoy Red. One of my favorite Taylor Swift eras, probably the one I have the most nostalgia for, because it happened, I think, when I was like early college, maybe even high school, like kind of in that transition time. And I just love Red. I love the album. I love the kind of bridge between country and pop. It has some of her best writing on it, I think. I mean, Notoriously All Too Well is on that album, which has always been a great song, obviously enhanced by the recent 10-minute version. But State of Grace, the title track, Red, Treacherous. Treacherous is like maybe my favorite Taylor Swift song of all time. I am a huge fan of Treacherous. Love it. Begin Again. I mean, even Holy Ground is such a great song. There's a lot of great stuff. I Almost Do. So much great country and just like singer-songwriter writing that Taylor did on that album. It's such a great album. And also just like the kind of cool hipster aesthetic, turning up the fade on Instagram, Keds-ness that's associated with the album is just like something I hold in such high regard because I was so into that like aesthetic and I thought that was so cool. And like obviously it's like outdated now, I guess, but I still like, I wish I could have dressed femme back then, which I mean, I guess technically I could have. Like, I wish I had been brave enough to have been able to dress femme and wear all that incredible stuff that she wore back then. And just the whole OG, not even the Taylor's version, but the OG red aesthetic holds such a place in my heart. I just love the album. And don't get me wrong, I like the big pop songs that were the actual hits from the album. I like We Are Never Getting Back Together. I think it's really catchy. I think it's really fun. I Knew You Were Trouble and 22, however, are actually like probably the worst songs on the album in my opinion. I don't mind I Knew You Were Trouble. I get why she did it. It was definitely a very eye-catchy thing for someone like Taylor Swift to do dubstep in a song, or light dubstep. I swear, if you tell like someone who's into dubstep that Taylor Swift did dubstep, it's like, you're not leaving that conversation for an hour and they're gonna mansplain, scream, cry, laugh, throw up, all the things that... But like, I understand kind of doing that, and it is like a catchy song. 22, I have never enjoyed that song, even when I turned 22. I just really don't like that song. I think it's a little beneath her, if we're being honest. So when the first night of Eras happened and we were all reacting to the set list and, you know, being like, oh my god, what's she gonna do? How is she, like, I think a big question is, how is she going to do this? Because how do you combine albums like Evermore and Folklore with poppy albums like Midnights and Lover? And also, those are 4 albums she has never toured before, and she's usually a person who like tours every album rather aggressively. So how is she going to do all of that while still holding true to the Eras theme of the tour, of, you know, her revisiting and showcasing all of her eras? Well, one, as we found, she just didn't do anything from debut in the permanent part of the show, which is interesting. And so I was like really interested. I think we all knew that All Too Well, the 10-minute version, was going to happen at the Eras tour, and it does. And that's by far the best part of the red part. The red section of the show happens at the very end. That was great. That was perfect. I mean, I remember it all too well. Yeah, I think that was obviously going to happen, and I appreciate that it did. What I really did not appreciate or enjoy about the red section, as somebody who's such a big fan of the red album, I almost think of the singles off red as red herrings, if you will. Because the album is actually this really emotional breakup, kind of coming of age, coming to terms with Jake Gyllenhaal being an asshole, basically. Also just like of being hurt, of feeling really big things, and, you know, knowing that things were going to be bad, but like still doing them because you're a teenager who has feelings and hormones and emotions. Like, it's really, like, I feel like it was her first step into really making super adult music and not just teenager music, which is not to degrade her first few albums. I love them, but I feel like Red is definitely the most adult album, or not the most adult in her catalog at all, but at the time it felt like a real departure from Speak Now, Fearless, which was very, you know, teen girl still in the throes of love. Red, it seems like Taylor is really coming to terms with the bad parts of love, the bad parts of dating, all of that, being betrayed. Not that she doesn't do that in Fearless and Speak Now, but there's just a maturity to Red that I think those albums don't have. And I always felt like when people would pull, like, We're Never Getting Back Together, I Knew You Were Trouble, and 22 from that album, I was like, that doesn't really represent the album, though. If you listen to the album as a whole, Treacherous, Red, State of Grace, like, so many songs that have a little bit more heart and depth to them, are actually what make the album for me. And even now with Taylor's version, if you listen to the vault tracks, Nothing New is a really great song about, you know, dealing with sexism and expectations as a woman in the music industry. Like, you have Forever Winter, which is a really nice, mature, more singer-songwriter song. It's just, the actual album Red is very different than the high or popular points and songs from that album would tell you it is. And I understand why she did the songs she did and why she did the Red era that way for the Eras tour. I just cannot be helped. I just can't help but be disappointed by it. I almost wish she had done more of what she did with, like, not like the brevity of the Speak Now section, but just like doing Enchanted from Speak Now instead of any of the singles. I wish she had just done that with Red and had just done like State of Grace, Red, and All Too Well, the 10-minute version, and maybe Begin Again. That's really pushing for a lot. And I also, like, I mean, and that would be silly because the 3 songs she does do, the big pop songs, are the big hits from Red until All Too Well, the 10-minute version hit #1, like, years and years later. So I understand, like, you have to do at least one of them. But I think one of them is it, because I don't think any of those 3 songs are really among the actual Taylor, like among the Swifties, among the people who sold their kidneys to be at the Eras Tour. I just don't think any of those 3 songs are particularly important to be played. All of them have been played a lot at her past shows, even like beyond the Red Tour. Like, I don't think I'm alone in wishing the Red section focused more on the album and, in my opinion, the heart of the album Red instead of just the singles. So I was just disappointed by that. I mean, I'm really happy she did the All Too Well 10-minute version, but I just think to not even do State of Grace, or like just like a little bit of State of Grace for the beginning, that's just me and my biases right there, because I just love the actual album of Red so much and all of that. But so that's why I ranked the Red section last. And I also feel like just like production value and costuming for that section was a lot less elaborate and interesting than a lot of the other sections. So I don't know. I'm not like actually furious or anything, but I do think Red got done a little dirty. So number 8, my next least favorite era of the tour, was 1989. This is another section where she just did the big hits like Blank Space, Shake It Off, and Wildest Dreams, and then Bad Blood. There may be something else. She like basically just did the big hits, and I don't think this was interesting because I wasn't really even looking forward to 1989 that much. It hasn't, like, I still really love that album and I have good memories of it, and I think Blank Space is probably the best like pure pop song that Taylor's ever written. Like, it is so clever and funny and just the best. I mean, I hate to use this phrase, but like sort of clap back at just like a bunch of sexist criticism. Well, I still love a lot from 1989, but just through the passion, and I'm not saying it wasn't a good performance during that section, but just through how Taylor seemed during that performance, it is like pretty well known that 1989 was not a good, especially that tour and all of that. That was like a really bad time personally for Taylor, that she was dealing with like just a lot of personal stuff, some medical, stuff that I don't need to get into. And, that's addressed in her Miss Americana doc about just all that she was going through during the 1989 tour. And it just, the whole section, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but it just seemed like, okay, we have to do this, so like, let's get it over with. Like, I don't think that's a time in her life that Taylor looks back super fondly on, and that's understandable, and I totally get it. That's also when all the Kim Kardashian stuff happened. And yeah, it was just like, she wasn't having the best time in the media, she wasn't having the best time in her personal life, she was dealing with a lot of insecurity. It just wasn't like the best time of her life. So I just definitely felt that a little during that performance of just like, yeah, this isn't really an era I want to revisit. The next era I'll be talking about, and I guess my number 7 or my third least favorite, was the Speak Now section. And this one is purely just because it was so short, because I loved it. If you don't know, it's for Speak Now, Taylor basically just walks out and sings Enchanted, and then like walks out Enchanted, and then she walks back in. And even though she walked back in was incredible, she does this little over the shoulder like just like very kind of classic Taylor. It was great. Like it was perfect. The only thing, and the only reason Speak Now is so low is because it was only that one song, and I get it. Like, she only has so much time. There's obviously so many other eras to do that she's released like new songs for. I'm going to finish up the rest of my complexion, so do my concealer, bronzer, blush, start the blush draping and all that, and then we'll come back to the eyes to make them kind of mesh for the blush draping. I'm just using my Milk concealer under my eyes. eyes and to spot conceal just a little bit. I would have killed for like a sparks fly, a little long live. I understand, I guess, why Speak Now wasn't as long, since she's done Taylor's versions for Fearless and Red, and then like she's released 4 other albums that she's never toured that need attention. But I think we could have given Speak Now. Like, if we weren't going to do the Red album tracks, then we could have maybe just done 1 or 2 of the pop hits there, and then maybe thrown a Sparks Fly or a Long Live into Speak Now. Those were the songs I would want from that album. Or even A Story of Us. Could you imagine A Story of Us? That would be great. I did just think Speak Now deserved a little, not a little bit, a bit more than it got. But I also understand the limits of time and also of Taylor as a performer. And also the vocals on her performance of Enchanted were really, really incredible. Like, she's come such a long way with that. So loved that. Just wish it lasted longer. I'm going to use my Salt New York contour and bronzer, by the way. So the next one on my list is number 6 of Fearless. And this number 6 and number 5, I was really torn on. But obviously, ultimately, Fearless ended up here. Fearless was great. Like, I will say, the 1989 and Red, thought those were markedly less great than the other sections. Up, it's all pretty phenomenal. And we're just picking hairs here. So I thought Fearless was great. Especially the first song she does is the album track. She comes out and kind of waltzes up the runway with her entire band. She like gives her guitar player, who's been with her forever, kind of a time to shine, you know, credit for being with her for so long. That was so sweet. She does the little spin dance. It was exactly what I would want from the Fearless section. And then from there she did You Belong With Me, which has never been my favorite, but I mean, that was like probably her first huge pop hit. So like, understand totally why it needed to be there. It was super fun. Then she did Love Story. Once again, love that song. That was super fun. And then I think that was it for Fearless, I'm pretty sure. And I just would have loved, like, again, I know we only had so much time. I guess I would have loved like an album track or something, like a little White Horse, which I think White Horse was actually a single. Let me take that back. But just like a little bit more of Fearless. I just wanted a little bit more. It was so good. It was so much fun. I loved it so much. It just felt just a teensy bit short, in my opinion. Like, I was like, I just wish that was a little bit longer, because it was so much fun, and it was so fun and cool to see Taylor kind of in her past pop country queen like aesthetic, and it was really great. And like the band was really cool, and like I really loved and adored that section. Again, my only thing was I wish this was longer. Which I don't actually wish of the show. The show was probably too long. Like, it's a really long show, but I really loved the Fearless part, and I thought she did so well during it. So yeah, really my only thing was I just wish it was a little bit longer. And the other sections going forward were like so like felt so much more robust, so that's why I put Fearless down a little bit. But it was great. It was really fun. It was so fun. Loved it. All right, I think I'm gonna start the blush draping now. I'll explain what I did for this before we get into number 5. I used 3 blushes because I mean, that's what you do when you blush drape, right? I shouldn't feel guilty about that. I used 3 it's a cream, y'all. It'll be okay. Right? Oh yeah, that's fine. Just got a couple dog hairs on it now. That was gonna happen anyway. I used Fenty Petal Poppin, a cream blush, as the base for the entire blush look, kind of all over my cheek. Then in like the very upper part of my cheek and the side of my face, I used Kiss of Rose by Bare Minerals. This is super, super pigmented. That looks like an eyeshadow swatch on me. I don't think this blush is really meant for my skin tone, which is totally my bad in buying it. Not a criticism of the product, but I just The only way I can really get use out of it is if I use it for blush draping and I really, really lightly just kind of put it up here and then it looks really good. So I use that. And then on the front parts of my cheek, to add a little bit of warmth and peachiness, I use the coral shade of the Dior little Rosy Glow. Yeah, the Dior Backstage Rosy Glow in the corally peachy shade. And then I actually, as sort of a fourth blush, I use the same eyeshadow I used on my eye, Flamingo. I just kind of lightly blend it right in the center of like my upper cheek area to kind of add even more dimension and color. My next era, number 5, which I think is like pretty much in the middle, was Midnights. Midnights was great. And I have to give a little bit of my own perspective here and why I actually would probably say I enjoyed Fearless more, but I put Midnights ahead of it. So I have this thing where, not that I get older but never wiser, I have this thing where it is very hard for me to go to an event like a Taylor Swift concert or any big event where there's going to be a lot of people, where I'm going to be out of my house a lot of the times, and where it's going to be just like a little bit stressful and like a lot to deal with, but also very exciting for me personally. I usually, 9 times out of 10, even if I take medicine, I will end up with a migraine in these situations. And that happened at the Taylor Swift concert. I got a horrible migraine. On the train ride home, I basically had to fight not to throw up on the train, which I don't even think anybody would have noticed, given how chaotic that train was. It sucks. I'm not saying it's like fun, but it's something I've dealt with like literally since I was a kid, and my family and I would go to movie theaters, or my first day of camp, I would get, it has to do with my, like, you know, my physical health, but also just how my body handles and processes my very high anxiety levels. So I knew it was probably going to happen, and sure enough, by the end of the show, I could see the first signs, even though I took a new prescription migraine med I actually got, and I just don't think I took it. I think I may have taken it too early, and then I should have taken a second one. I don't know. But is what it is. So during the Midnight section, I was both impressed with the elaborate choreo, how she was still going at the end of the show. She did a lot off Midnights, which I was really happy with. I love Midnights. I just also was trying not to throw up and had a horrible migraine during it. So I did like my best, especially during Bejeweled. I love Bejeweled. I love that song. But I was truly like fighting for my life, and then Bejeweled came on, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to give it all I have for this song because I know it's almost the end. And then I need to like cool it, and we can like leave a little early so I don't projectile vomit on section 336 at Mercedes-Benz. This is the Bare Minerals blush, by the way. And I picked up a very light amount on a very fluffy blush brush, and you can see how even still it is super, super pigmented. I'm just like manually moving Midnights ahead of Fearless because I was more impressed by the production. I loved all the choreo during it. It's just, me personally, I didn't enjoy it as much because I was fighting for my life at the end of the show. Would I have chosen all of the songs she did? No, but I mean, I love a ballad, so I would have loved like a little Labyrinth. I love she did Mastermind though. I wish some of the 3 a.m. tracks were in the permanent set list, like The Great War. I am so jealous of the people who got The Great War as a surprise song. I'm also going to start to blend out the eyeshadow more, like from my outer V into all that blush. I'm going to start with the Lavender Soiree shade. All right, next, number 4 is Folklore. So Folklore is definitely up there as one of my favorite Taylor Swift albums. Very into Folklore, Evermore, Red. Those are probably my top 3, I would say. So I was really excited to see how, because I think a lot of people were curious how she was going to translate her more folk indie albums that she did during the pandemic into an arena show that was going to make sense with her, you know, the reputation in 1989 of it all. And I was really astounded how well Folklore and Evermore, as you'll see later, worked in the context of like a place as big and a show as big, like a place as big as Mercedes-Benz and a show and a person as big as Taylor Swift. So I thought Folklore was great. I will say, this is so petty, and this is me just being a very graphic design, aesthetic-minded person, but there is a graphic that she uses during the folklore section. And like the stage is beautiful. She has this wonderful cabin situation that I think is similar or the exact one she used during a Grammys performance. It's so pretty. The whole stage is great. The costuming's great. The choreo's great. All of it is great. Especially during Last Great American Dynasty. The choreo, was so good. And I love that song. But she had this graphic at the very beginning of the performance. It was like blue trees. And I truly was like, what in the Shutterstock what in the Shutterstock nonsense is this? Like, why have we spent all this money on these sets and this tour? And like, we have like, and that's the graphic we're using for folklore. Like that like drew me out of it immediately. I was like, what is going on? Like change that immediately. But besides that, I love the folklore section. It was very cottagecore, warm, summer aesthetic. She started with the one. Originally, she started it with invisible string, and then she went to the one, and we don't know if that's because of Joe or not. I don't know. I actually, my partner and I, well, we talked about the entire show afterward. I was shocked that she ever did invisible string there, because the one, as it is on the album, was the perfect opening song, because she kind of starts on top of the cottage, and she's like posing and being really cute, and like I just think the one probably works there a lot better than invisible string. Last Great American Dynasty, I loved the way the dancers were incorporated into that with like the house, and like the story of that song is so special and interesting, and that performance was a highlight for me for sure. I really loved how that came across and was brought to the Eras tour. She also does this very dramatic illicit affairs bridge in the middle when you don't expect it, and I really tried to avoid spoilers for the tour, so I knew the general sketch of the set list, but I hadn't seen any videos really from it except like from the red section, so I didn't know exactly when or how it was coming, and that was like so cool. It was like, oh my god, like so dramatic but incredible. Number 3 is really surprising, and if you would have told me this before the show, I would have been like, what? No, number 3 is Lover. Lover is not my favorite Taylor Swift album. I don't not like it, and I definitely have a new appreciation for it after the show. But as you can maybe tell, I really love singer-songwriter, even like honestly you could say more country-minded Taylor. Like that's my favorite stuff from her. Her pop music sometimes isn't my favorite thing she does. Like Lover, I like some of the songs from it, but I think it's probably of the 4 albums that she released since she last toured, it's probably the one I needed the least from, because I prefer not just Folklore and Evermore, I probably prefer and listen to Midnights more. So she starts the show with Lover, and she does like a little bit of Miss Americana, which actually was a really good opener, and I was like, okay, this is actually a really good opener. I was kind of like questioning why she opened with this song, but it's great. And then she did probably my favorite song from Lover, which is Cruel Summer, as like the true opener of the show. Oh my god. It was like, if you had any doubt if Taylor could dance if she had stage presence, which I don't know why you would at this point, because I think if Taylor Swift has anything, it's stage presence. But she just like starts off on this like giant block thing, and she does Cruel Summer. From what I remember, not a ton of backup dancers are integrated. It's really just her, and just serves in such an incredible way. Like, oh my gosh, it's such a great performance. And I was like, whoa, like we are in for a treat. Which I mean, obviously I knew we already were, but I was just really blown away by the performance quality of Cruel Summer, and how she like just like immediate, like I think it's so impressive that she can just immediately come out in a 70,000+ person crowd and without even missing a beat, just like give the performance of a lifetime to Cruel Summer and just pose-a-thon it out there. Like it was great. And then she did The Man, which isn't like my favorite song. Like I obviously appreciate the message, but I don't know. I don't think it's like I think Blake Space is a lot more clever in the sort of lyrical, satirical department than that song is for me personally. But I actually really enjoyed that. Then she did You Need to Calm Down, which is, again, not my favorite. Some queer theory criticisms about that song, like why are we comparing the plight of pop stars being compared online to the LGBTQ community? But you better bet I was in my section just shouting, "Shade doesn't make you less gay," because it was a serve. And then she did Lover, which was really good. I do really like the title track off Lover. It's definitely a nice Taylor singer-songwriter moment. And then to close out the set, which again, I was already blown away at this point because I was like, I really didn't think I was going to like the Lovers section this much, but wow, I'm like really impressed. She did the Archer, which I always really liked the Archer, but I don't know if it's something about the production. It's not a home run to me. It's a great song, just never been my true favorite. But oh my God, it's like during it, I was like, oh, this song's like meant for an arena. Like the song is meant for, and I think what was missing from hearing it is that you are meant to hear it in a giant arena while Taylor gives the performance of a lifetime. It translated not just musically, but just kind of visually so well. Oh, The Archer was probably one of my favorite songs of the entire show. And at the end of the Lover set, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I loved the Lover set, and I was just not expecting to be as into it as I ended up being, which is awesome. That was a nice surprise. I'm gonna like spot powder a little with this powder foundation. So we have 2 left, and these are like a little bit above the rest for me, or not a little, a good amount of bit above the rest for me. Pretty much done with my eyes and the blush draping. I don't know, I just really love it. I think it's like very Lavender Hazy on the eyes, but then I love just the warmth and the pink of the blush, and the draping is just so pretty, and how intense it is in the back. But in the front, it's like a little softer. I think it's really cute. I'm gonna powder a little with my Glossier Wowder. I think I might have used Laura Mercier that night because I wanted it to be, or I actually might have used Glossier. So I think my skin was actually looking like just a little parched, a little dry, which was weird. So I think I used Wowder. So number 2, which again is like, if you would have told me my number 2 and not number 3, I would have been like, you are out of your mind. Like, no way. Number 2 is Reputation. And this is controversial, but I'm not a huge Reputation girl. Again, as you can probably tell, and as I've said multiple times, full tilt pop Taylor is not my favorite Taylor. I think there are some great songs on Reputation, some great pop moments, some great songwriter moments from Taylor. It's just never been my favorite, to be honest. I'm gonna add some powder bronzer, by the way. It's just never been my favorite. But I mean, number 1, so she opens with Ready For It, and the way the biggest sound of the night was the audience freaking out when she opened with Ready For It. Like the first few notes of Ready For It happened, and that was the biggest sound I heard all night. Like people, like that was a Reputation crowd. She came out and it was almost like Cruel Summer times 10. Like she was doing it. Like all of the passion that I feel like may have been missing from the 1989 section was in the Reputation section. Like you could just like, it was sort of like a way of showing, not telling, how much she started to enjoy her life and what she did more in the Reputation era versus 1989. Like 1989, I just think was an obligation. Reputation, she was like thrilled to be in this space again. Can't wait. Let's go. And slaughtered it. Like, again, as somebody whose pop Taylor is not my favorite Taylor, she murdered it. Like it was incredible to watch. The performance quality was absolutely wonderful. Ready For It was incredible. She did Don't Blame Me, which I think has since gotten more popular because of TikTok. That was incredible. I'm using the Well People powder, by the way, the blurring baked one. Oh, she did Delicate. That was super cool to watch. Oh, Look What You Made Me Do was insane. Like she had these like mannequins of herself, and oh my gosh, just the performance quality of that was incredible. It was just really impressive, like really impressive. I'm gonna spray my face with the Rare Beauty 4-in-1 mist. Show some love to Selena while we're here. She was performing. She was like, if anyone doubts after Cruel Summer that I am a pop star, then you can watch this. Like, it made me regret so bad that I didn't get to go to the Reputation tour because it was wonderful and almost felt like a nice little jolt of the Reputation tour, and it was it was so good. And it came right after this next one, which is number 1, which you probably can figure out. So it was just like a 1-2 punch where I was just like, how can she go from that to this and it'll all be so good and it'll all be so quality? Just wow. Taylor Swift. Taylor Allison Swift, ladies and gentlemen. And gentle days. I'm going to go into my Midnight Sun, my favorite highlighter shade, and use that on my cheeks and my inner corner for a nice bright highlight moment. So my number one, as many of you have probably figured out, is Evermore, which is definitely one of my favorite Taylor Swift albums. Not a huge surprise. I love this section so much. But I think what was really surprising and why it ended up in number one, besides it was incredible, I really was unsure, like I mentioned earlier, how, especially Evermore, which is like an even darker and more quiet album than Folklore, how it was going to end up translating to a giant stadium environment where you were performing 1989, you're performing Reputation, like these ginormous pop albums. Like, how is Evermore and Folklore going to compete if you don't do them as like acoustic-y sections? And she very much separated the two eras. She was like, no, these are different albums, even if they're sister albums. Like, I want to give them each their own individual moments. She started with 'Tis the Damn Season, which is definitely a song where I was like, how the hell is she going to perform that in a giant stadium? Oh my god, it was like, again, it was almost like the Archer where I was like, has this song, and I've always loved 'Tis the Damn Season, but I was like, has this song always been meant as like an arena rock song? Like, it was so cool. Like, the instrumentation was incredible, and she also had on this dress during the Evermore section that I desperately want. It was so gorgeous. Her makeup during it, just her vibe during the Evermore like section, if I didn't also think it was the best era section of the show, just like the vibe and artistry during it was absolutely wonderful. And she does 'Tis the Damn Season, absolutely kills it. I'm like, I cannot believe this is translating so well. Oh, also the set of Evermore, she has these like pine trees rise from the ground, and it looks like the Pacific Northwest during winter or fall. And then she did Willow, which was absolutely wonderful. She did like, I'm trying to think what else did she, she did Champagne oh my god, I'm like so excited. She did Marjorie, which is about her grandmother, and which is a song that makes me very emotional because it reminds me a lot of my grandmother who's passed away, and weirdly we have a lot of the same experiences. Like, she talks about swimming in that song. My granny took me swimming, was a swim instructor actually her entire life, so that all was wild when I've heard that the first time. It's a very emotional song. And I think we were the first crowd to ever like put up our phones and use our flashlights during that song. And she was like legit emotional, and it was like, oh my god, this is so special. And then she did Champagne Problems, which is a fabulous song. Killed that. I think she had audio problems during that section, so we got a Taylor Swift joke about a cat, which was fun. And then she did Tolerate It, which is kind of this choreographed piece with a dinner table, and that was wonderful. I loved the choreography during it, just the performance aspect, how she represented that song visually, and then also her vocals during it were absolutely wonderful. Like, probably one of her best vocal performances of the entire show. Again, just aesthetically, like, I almost want to do a video where I recreate her Evermore tour look, because I loved it so much. Like, it was definitely my favorite look of the entire show, although I also loved the Lover bodysuit she wore, especially during Cruel Summer. I loved a lot of the midnight stuff she wore was really pretty. And even Folklore, I loved her dress in Folklore, but her Evermore dress was so special. The makeup was so special. Just, oh my gosh, the Evermore section, I had chills, like goosebumps the entire time. And I just was astounded that not only did she manage to make Evermore compete visually and choreographically and just like compete in a giant arena with the likes of Reputation 1989, I actually thought it was better. It was glorious, I have to say. Evermore, I mean, it has my heart in so many ways, but I thought it was the best album of the show, or the best era of the show. For my lips, I literally did nothing, since I know I was going to be like, you know, drinking, and I didn't want to have to like touch anything up, and I really feel like the blush is pretty intense and speaks for itself. So I think I did a little Dior lip oil or something, so I can go put that on really quick, and then I'm gonna go and put on the dress I wore and show you like the overall look and also the wigs that were options, but that I ultimately did not end up wearing. I'll be back. But this is a dress. I can do a little stand-up pose for you, but it was $12 from Target because it was on sale. From the Future Collective brand, or sub-brand, I think, at Target, that was limited edition. It was all on 30% sale when I bought it. It has a lower back where you can see my farmer's tan, so don't look too much, but I really loved it. It was super comfy. It's like a t-shirty, cottony fabric. Really comfy. I loved that it was lavender. It was pretty much exactly what I was looking to spend and the vibe I was going for. Got a lot of compliments on the look, so that was cute. It's wig section time. So I have two wigs. One I bought specifically for the Eras tour, and one I actually had for a Taylor Swift dance party I went to. That is very much like a Taylor cosplay wig. I didn't end up wearing either because like I mentioned, we went there on MARTA public transit. It was like, all in all, probably a 7 or 8 hour excursion. Like the amount of tired I felt, especially with like the migraine I got and the vomiting, I could only compare to like, because it was like a good tired. I mean, the migraine wasn't good, but it was tired over like a good event, not like anything bad that happened. So the only thing I compare that to is like a really busy day at Disney World. It was absolutely exhausting. So I'm really glad I didn't wear a wig because I don't think it would have lasted the entire night, and then my hair would have been messed up and it would have been hot and sweaty. But I'll show you the options. This is Taylor. I've worn her before. And I'm not going to put on a wig cap because that's way too much effort. Oh Lord. Okay, maybe I should do this off camera. So there's Taylor. Why are these, what is wrong with this side? Like something's not right. Here we go. So this is Taylor. I just don't think she worked with this look at all. And it's just like a little leader of the conservative Christian sorority for me and how it makes me look. So, oh, ow. Oh God, why does the hair always get caught in my earring? Go away, Taylor. And second wig, which I actually bought for this, and which I didn't really love when I got it. I wish I got like a shorter wig. I wanted it to kind of go with the sort of lavender purple, but I wanted it to be like gray purple. It just kind of didn't let the makeup shine or the dress shine. It just kind of made everything too much, in my opinion. And it's like I wish I got one with like some sort of bangs or something, because it's also just like, not that I didn't think people would think it was a wig, but it was so clockable. like so clockable. Like I like it, but maybe I'll wear it for like a video or something. But also didn't, I think, let the blush drape shine as much as it did when I wore it with just my short hair. So let's look at her in a mirror. Yeah, I don't know about her. This really isn't my favorite. Like, it's kind of a serve, but maybe I can do some thumbnail poses in it. But yeah, that's her. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little Eras Tour ranking. Get ready with me. Maybe some like look inspo if you are going to the Eras Tour this summer. Have the time of your life. If you are still trying to get last minute tickets, I hope the odds are in your favor and you get as good of a price as possible, or, you know, maybe, you know, Aunt Margaret passes, or, you know, she doesn't have to pass. Maybe she throws some thousands of dollars your way. I don't know. I wish you the best. My parting thought is that I want to shout out whoever is the sweet person who gave me this little friendship bracelet at the show. They complimented my outfit, and they were with, like, a cute little service dog that had like headphones on for like noise protection headphones, but like for a dog. It was very cute. They complimented my outfit, and then when I was we were walking to our seats, they gave me this little Taylor Swift friendship bracelet that says Gaylor, which Gaylor is the conspiracy theory that Taylor Swift is queer in some way, which I don't really know if I actually subscribe to, but I do just love. Like, it was super fun to wear. It was super sweet of the person to give it to me. So if you happen to be watching this, thank you. You were wonderful. And that's all, y'all. Have a good one. Bye.